Emerson's book on self-reliance back, I don't know, 30 years ago or something, where he talks about, if you're familiar with the essay about, you should be a farmer and you should build your own house and you should run for political office and just be everything, try everything, explore life and be a part of everything. And that's kind of what I've done over the years. And when I look at this concept, I see how fantastic it is when you can combine the scientific with the energetic and the spiritual. And you put all those things together, and that's really what the book can represent. Most people spend a whole lifetime, they have hopes and desires, but they never spend enough time focused on those hopes and desires to see them manifested, to see them really come to pass. And this is a tool that gives you access to that, and that can really help you accomplish that. If you integrate the powerful realms of spirit and energy and science, then you've got all aspects that you can draw from. As Regina said, I've studied these things for a number of years and explored more things than I can count. But all good, because to me, they all come together. When I tell people, well, I'm a black belt in martial arts and I coach football and I'm an ordained clergyman, they can't connect the dots. But to me, it all comes together in a manifestation of how can I live life to the fullest, and how can I serve people to the fullest. If I have all these different parts that I can contribute to somebody's life, then it makes it bigger and broader of what I can do for people. When you, in the history of science and the history of the quantum and the history of religion, you go back to the Renaissance period when really people started breaking away from the church. The church started becoming so domineering and so forceful that people wanted to break away. The problem was they were breaking away from the church thinking they were breaking away from God. And that really wasn't the fact, because what they did was they broke away from the doctrine of the organized religious church and said, well, we'll get rid of all this dominance and overbearing and just go into science. When Copernicus said that the sun was the center of the universe and not the earth, he wouldn't even publish that until he was on his deathbed, because he was afraid of the church. And then later, Da Vinci and Galileo and some of the others decided, hey, the sun is the center of the universe, but it took the church 800 years to admit it, because they said, well, God created the earth, so that's got to be the center of the universe. But they wouldn't look at science, so they ignored it. So people finally said, all right, well, we'll just go our way, because we know that you're not even recognizing truth on a broader scale. And especially when Darwin came along and thought he discovered evolution, then everybody was good. We can just get rid of everything and leave all of that behind and go totally into science. But the ridiculous thing is, to me, is if science, the only thing science ever does is discover things. They don't invent anything, they don't create anything, they just discover it. Well, if they discovered it, then where did it come from? And from my perspective, God created all those things. So if God created the science that they're discovering, then it originates from God, and so there is no separation. There is no separation between God and science and energy field and the quantum realm. It took, the quantum realm, if you've ever studied any of that stuff, was first talked about in the late 1800s. They tried to test something to prove it, and their equipment wasn't proficient enough to test it. So they just did, for almost 50 years, they ignored it, said it didn't exist. And finally, in the 1950s, 1960s, people had sufficient enough equipment that it could prove that there was a quantum realm, and a whole new science developed out of that. And so that energy level started to be a focus of a lot of things in that realm. And people, again, were in a dilemma. Well, you've got this Newtonian world that we all live in with Newtonian physics, and then you've got this quantum world, so which one do we choose? They finally got smart enough to decide that they're both separate, because Newtonian deals with the macro, and quantum deals with the micro. So you've got two beautiful energy fields that balance out if you understand the broader scope of it all. So it's like when the laws of gravity were discovered by Newton and he explained it, nobody ever bothered worrying about, do I understand gravity? They know if you jump off a building, you fall, or if you drop something off a building, it drops. So they didn't have to really understand the field to be able to operate within it. And the same goes in the quantum realm. You don't really have to understand everything about it to operate in it. And in fact, when we do things in these angel books, and when we do things with our emotions in life, we are operating in that quantum field without even understanding the principles that we're operating. But to be able to understand it and to discover it and to utilize it in a more focused way, to know exactly what to do in that quantum realm to produce results, is a whole nother step on a larger scale. As I've taught on this realm of quantum living or quantum dynamics, I've taught several classes on it, and I've lectured for a couple of weeks on it in different courses. But in what I wanted to bring up here is something as simple as the reticular activating system, which you just talked about a couple of times. That really is part of the quantum realm. If you think of something, if you focus on something, you immediately, your brain says, okay, that's what you want to know about, we'll filter everything else out and let you hear that. And I thought one time when I was in Zurich, Switzerland, I was walking through an airport, and every language in the world, being spoken, Spanish and French and German and Swiss and all these things, and I'm tuning all of it out. And then I'm about halfway down this corridor, and I hear somebody speak English, like, over on the side. Well, immediately my ears picked it up, and I heard what they said, because it was just scanning. It was scanning. What can I understand here? What can I pick up? It was filtering out all the other languages, but when I heard that English being spoken, it immediately picked it up and brought it to me. Well, that's what we do when we take something like this angel book and you say, I'm going to focus on this. I'm going to look at this. This is what I desire in my life. This is what I want to produce, what I want to manifest, what I want to bring into my reality. So then your system just works then filtering out other things and directing it to that thing, so that you pick up the clues and you see the nuances and you get the individual things that are profitable to that thing that you desire, and it brings it to you so that you can figure it out, so that you can advance in it. So anything that, and again, that's just one small element of the quantum world that we're operating in this thing that we're doing today. There are, I think, even, people talk about scripture and science being separate, or even the quantum being separate, but as I've studied the scriptures and I've looked at them, there are many references to how the quantum field works, even in scripture. But again, if you're not focused on that, that's not what you're kind of filtering, you're not going to see it. But in Mark 11:24, it says, when you pray, believe that you've already received it, and you shall have it. Well, that's a quantum principle, that you believe you have something before you even see it manifest. You're focusing on it already accomplished in your life. Romans 14:7 says that Abraham called those things that were not as though they were. He didn't have a child and had not had a child, and he was 99 and his wife was 90, so it didn't even look like there was a possibility of a child. And yet he called those things that were not, meaning he didn't have a child, as though they were. He claimed that in his life, and that's what was manifested. And again, that's a quantum principle, over and over again. Hebrews 11:1 says, believing is the title deed, the evidence of things, the evidence that they are yours before you have them. If you buy a house, when you go to the lawyer and you buy a house and you get the title deed, that house now belongs to you. You haven't walked in the door, you're at the lawyer's office. But that title deed says you can go to that house, walk in that house, and own that house. So that's what this kind of visioning is. When you look at those books and you have those pictures, you claim those things as if they already are, and that's the involvement. And then the universe, in all of its, and we could go into string theory, and we could go into a lot of other things about how it works. All of it comes together to produce what you're looking at, what you're desiring, what you're putting in mind that you want to see happen in your life. So that's why, as simple as the little book is, it's dealing with science, it's dealing with spirituality, it's dealing with quantum physics, it's dealing with all of those things, and helping you bring them together into a package. And as I said, Regina and I talked about this a while back about doing something. I've taught quantum physics and living, quantum living in several classes in the past. And I'm gonna do something in the future too, as far as making that available. So if you have any interest in quantum physics or how you incorporate it into your life, I'm gonna do an hour-long Zoom call, I think at the end of the month, just to give people information about it if you're interested in how it functions and how you incorporate it. And we'll give you that information later on today. But today we're using it in the book that we do. Again, incorporating all three realms of the spiritual, the scientific, and the quantum realm to be able to bring things to pass. So, that's what I have.